Today I'm going to be talking about how to choose jewellery to suit you. Hi, I'm Carol from Affordable Jewellery Supplies, and today I'm going to be talking to Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style. Imogen is the mama bear of image consultants. She trains image consultants worldwide. She's an author of books like The Finishing Touch, which is all about accessorising. She's also created several online programs, including the 7 Steps to Style and the 16 Style Types. Welcome, Imogen.
Thanks for having me, Carol.
It's lovely to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. So, Imogen, tell us about when and how you became a style consultant.
So I decided back in about 2004, it was, that I'd always had an interest in style and understanding what worked for me. I used to sew my own clothes a lot when I was young, and so I'd spent hours making something and then it looked terrible.
Oh, I know that.
And I think, what's wrong? And I remember going shopping one day, and I was with a friend, and this was probably about 16 actually. We walked into our local department store. We both got the same dress in the same size try on. And we went into the change rooms, and I remember putting this dress on and just looking at myself thinking, you look like the side of a house. And, not flattering, look huge, terrible. And then my friend went, oh, this is fabulous. And she came out of the change room and she looked fabulous in this dress. And I thought, well, it's not the dress. It's just that this dress does not suit my body. I always wanted to know, because especially because I was spending time like sewing, and I'd make something and it would work and something else wouldn't work. I went, well, what is it about my body that means that some things work and some things don't? That kind of started me on this journey to understanding the why behind style. And then it wasn't until my kind of early mid-30s where I discovered image consulting, and I got training, and I went, this is the thing I've been looking for all my life. And so I really learnt, the real science. There's a total science behind style. It's not just an art, and you don't have to be born with it. To learn how to become a stylish. And I said, this is why that dress was so terrible on me. That even though we were the same size, I had a large bust, she had a small one, she had a defined waist, I had an undefined waist. And because our bodies were very different, the dress was designed for someone with her shape, not with my shape.
Right.
And so for me, it was, learning all those things. And then when I did my training, starting to understand how personality influenced style. And I remember learning about different personality types and realizing that on the whole, my feet have to be more feminine. Even my relaxed version of a shoe is a ballet flat. It's, I can wear sneakers, but it's just not my thing unless I'm actually doing exercise.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I realized that, I can only wear sneakers when I'm running. And it's because they are too relaxed for my personality. It doesn't suit who I am. And I learned that, I like my feet to be more feminine. I have different aspects of my style. And it started to make sense about why I like some things and couldn't wear other things that other people would be more than happy wearing and looked great in, because I'd spent years doing things like going, my friend looks great wearing that. I'm going to try that. And then, of course, it didn't work on me. And I didn't feel authentic in it either. It didn't feel right. And so there was process until I discovered image consulting, and then it was like this whole world of information opened up to me. I was like going, that's why that works, that's why that doesn't. And then of course, I became an image consultant, and I just love sharing it because I know how much it's actually impacted my life, and how much of a positive impact it's had. I don't make the same shopping mistakes or sewing mistakes I used to make, but B, it's given me so much more confidence in myself, and just feeling when there is truth that when you look good, you feel good. And when it feels authentically right to you as well, that it's, your style is an expression of who you are as a person. And that was something that, understanding how do you actually pull that out of someone? How do you actually find that stuff? And that's really important too.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I did your 7 Steps to Style about 3 years ago. It changed my life. And one thing I discovered, it was actually about my jewellery. Because I had always, I didn't really wear jewellery much at all. And then when I did the course, I realised that I didn't wear jewellery because the jewellery that I had was wrong for me. It was small and dainty, and what I'm wearing today is not small and dainty. Basically, I needed big jewellery, and this was quite hard to swallow. I need dark jewellery, or quite, to give me that contrast. So, tell us a little bit about your 7 Steps to Style course.
So basically, it's kind of the full walk you through your style sort of program. So it covers your personality and how that influences all your style choices. It covers all the physical elements of style, so body shape, proportions, body variations, face shape, features, scale, texture, like pattern. There's all sorts of things in there. There's a lot that goes into who we are and what we actually look like on a physical way. So we've kind of got the personality, the mental, then we've got the physical, then we've got colouring. So how does your colour impact on what you should wear? And that covers, not only getting a colour palette so that, the right sort of colours for you, whether you're warm or cool, lighter or darker, brighter, more muted, but also how you put those colours together. And this is where contrast comes in, and which you just mentioned, and choosing things in the right, even with a palette, you can still go wrong because you might not be choosing how you're putting those colours together for you, is really important as well. Yeah. And then it covers kind of other elements of your style. So how you come across in your physicality, as well as your personality, your voice, your movement, all those things impact on how we perceive someone. So looking at that, we also look at your style values. So what actually is important to you? What are and these relate to your personal values. So that really helps you, particularly when you're shopping and wardrobing. Then we also talk about how to wardrobe and also how to go shopping. So it's like the full, start to finish style education that you never got when you're at school. That is what it's aimed to be.
Yeah, and it is a hugely comprehensive course. And I'm 3 years on, I'm still learning, and I keep going back and reading some more and reading it again. And it was, to be honest, it was huge value for money because I just, it stopped me making mistakes. Well, so many mistakes anyway.
I think the thing with, any sort of education, whether it's a style education or anything else, like this is what it's, like I made it really comprehensive, and the first time through you'll get this layer, and then the next time you go through it you'll get the next layer, and then you'll go through it again and you'll get another layer, because it's like building on any skill, that there is a lot of skill involved, and so you'll gradually, as you go, I've learned that bit and now I can get to the next deeper level of this, and then I can get to a deeper level. And so that's why a lot of people kind of just keep going round and around. And also too is we're changing beings. So this is where sometimes we might have body shape changes, or we might have colouring changes, or just lifestyle, all those things we need to revisit our style. Style is not static.
Yeah,
style is a journey.
And I know for me, over the last 3 years, my style has changed a lot as I've kind of developed a real understanding of who I am, and what I like and what I dislike, and what works for me and what doesn't. Yeah. So there's actually quite a lot in there about jewellery, because your accessories play a huge part in who you are and how you dress. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I love accessories, and one of the reasons, because I've always loved a bit of jewellery, but it wasn't until I did my image consultant training where I discovered that because I had a very large bust, I needed large scale jewellery. And so I'd always worn little itty bitty things, because that was kind of what was around and what everybody was wearing. And I felt a bit uncomfortable when I first started, but I managed to find one necklace, and because it was quite open, it didn't feel too huge. And so I started wearing that, and I started getting compliments, and I noticed people started looking in my eyes instead of at my chest. And I thought, this is working. And it really did, help to disguise or camouflage that's something that I didn't want people to notice so much. So, that's kind of what got me into jewellery in a big way. And then, you can just express personality through it. Sparkly things are very different from matte things. Your personality influences all these things, whether you like wooden beads, or do you like, polished turquoise, or do you like cut diamonds? All those things are very different. Do you like small and detailed? Do you like large and chunky? Do you like asymmetrical? Do you like symmetrical? I mean, all those things come into personality, but they can be expressed through your jewellery. And jewellery is such a great tool for creating focal points. We really want focal points in every outfit, because we want to lead the eye somewhere. I always say what I teach my clients is how to be a magician with clothes. So when we think about what a magician does, there's the illusion. And so, we have all sorts of illusion techniques. So, we can use line and design and color and all those sorts of things. But then there's also the distraction that, it's the whole thing when you're watching magician. They're distracting you somehow so you don't notice them doing the trick. And that is what focal points are for. It's look up here so you don't notice what's going on down there.
Especially good if you have hips that you don't want anyone to see.
So I always say, if you're looking in my eyes, you're not looking at my thighs.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
On earrings, necklace, all these things help to draw attention up to your face. And that is where we're communicating from. So it's really where the eye naturally wants to go. So what you're doing is by putting some interesting elements in that area, it's really helping the eye to go, I just want to keep looking here. And then I'm not distracted by what's going on below.
Yeah. For me, once I figured out my style recipe, like you were saying about the shoes, there's no way you'd put something on a leather cord for me, for example. I just wouldn't wear it, so it's exactly the same type of thing. So I mentioned style recipe there, so tell me a bit about that.
So a style recipe is a set of words that you use as a kind of touchstone for deciding what to wear, what to buy. It's got to be related to your personality of who you are, but also it's slightly aspirational, because what we want to do is remind ourselves, kind of sometimes where we go wrong. We want it to be the best version of ourselves, but it still needs to work across your whole life. So it can be any sort of set of words, and there's no right or wrong. I mean, like we've seen Lady Dragon Rider, dynamic, vibrant, unexpected.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, it's what works for you. And it can be things like you don't need to put words in of things you do already. Like that's unimportant. Because if you go, I always dress comfortably, for example, then comfortable doesn't need to be in there.
Right.
But if you go, I tend to get comfortable to sloppy, but what I want to do is express maybe my creativity. So maybe there's some word around creativity that inspires you that you can use in there to remind you, like, have I got my piece of creative on today? Like, or am I just dressed in a plain, boring, kind of sloppy way? So it's really using that, and I found it incredibly useful. I was shopping with a client one day, and one of the words she had in her style recipe was luxurious. And it was really so useful because in this store, she was looking at two different scarves. She liked them both. How do I decide which one to buy? So she said, this one. And I just said to her, which one says luxurious to you? And she went, this one. It was so easy. Suddenly, the decision making was done because the luxurious one just jumped out at her. And so therefore she knew that was the right choice. This is where it's a fantastic tool to help you kind of with your style choices. And when you're putting outfits together, to going, well, have I got my glamorous on today, if that's one of your words? Or have I got my sparkle, if that's, like whatever it might be. It's have I got that?
For me, it's have I got my edge on?
Have you got your edge on? Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It can really just help you, with your whole style and making those style decisions.
And it helps with your jewellery too.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're picking jewellery, we also need to be aware of our body shape as well. So, you talked before about having a big bust and wearing big jewellery. So can you expand on that a little bit more? So
really with jewellery, I mean, it really depends where the jewellery is going. But when we think about, say, the scale of jewellery, that there is a kind of illusion. It's called the Ebbinghaus illusion. When we put something large next to something that's large, it looks a bit smaller. But if we put something small next to it, it looks larger. So especially, say, for bust, if you've got a large bust, if you wear small jewellery, it looks too small. Like it's out of balance and it makes the bust look larger. Versus if you put the large jewellery next to it, then the bust looks more balanced and in scale. And so it's the same sort of thing if you think about facial features as well. If you've got large facial features, you might find larger scale jewellery works. But if you've got small, dainty facial features, really large scale jewellery won't work. And that's one of the things I find, because I've actually got fairly small facial features but a large bust. So how do I go, I need the large jewellery but the small jewellery. And so what I've learned is I need either things that are a bit, say, see-through, where they're not solid. They're either textured, see-through, rather than a big, if it was just a big, chunky, like solid piece,
yeah,
it would look too large. But because or it needs to be made of many smaller pieces, a bit like your earrings are, where they're made from multiple smaller pieces that create the feeling of something larger.
I notice with your jewellery too, you very seldom wear beads right up around your neck. You mostly have a focal, and that kind of speaks to your disguising a large bust but a small face. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also two things is I don't necessarily want to draw attention to my neck due to the sun damage I've got on it.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's just fascinating, the whole body shape and jewellery thing, and clothing too. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is fascinating. So with jewellery, because obviously I sell jewellery components, what I've noticed is people are either gold people or they're silver people. And the only people that I sell both to is people who make jewellery to sell. Even then, they usually have a gold or a silver, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned before warm and cool. So can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. So we kind of all have undertones, either warm or cool. So there's three major properties of colour. So there's the undertone, which is how warm or cool something is. And so that just means kind of has to got a more yellow base or a blue base. So with skin, we'll tend to find that people either have a warm or a cool base. So generally, warm people may have a higher level of carotene in their skin. There's two different sorts of melanin. So melanin's the tanning, pigment. So warm people tend to have a warm melanin, cool people have a cooler, more blue melanin. So even when you tan, you still tan in your, your undertone. And so when you are looking at colours, the colours that make you look healthier are the one, will have the same undertone as you, versus if you're wearing the wrong undertone, either it stands out and it's very obvious, or with jewellery, it doesn't matter too much because it's a smaller percentage. But if you're wearing a piece of clothing in the wrong undertone, you can look kind of flushed, you can look tired, you generally look older, not particularly attractive, you can look jaundiced. So it's finding the right sort of colours, and then generally say silver is cooler and gold is warmer. Rose gold goes across both. Because it's a pink gold, it's got pink, which is cooler, and then yellow, which is warmer, and they're combined together. So it tends to be something that both warm and cool can wear.
That's great. Okay.
So with jewelry, I just go like, if you're a cool person, it's easier to wear the silver jewellery, and then that all goes together. Versus if you're warm, that warm, colour looks nice on your skin, and you can often see when you're looking at your, your jewellery, whether one is better than the other, or one blends more with your skin compared to the other.
So I quite like, when I design jewellery, to mix my metals, which I know is a no-no, but I do.
No, it's not a no.
But I tend to go, more one colour than the other. So that's kind of the way to resolve that, isn't it? If you're a cool person, or you're designing a piece of jewellery for a cool person, you tend to go with more silver with a touch of gold, and vice versa if you're a warm person. Yeah.
And look, it's one of those things, is like, nobody ever says you can't put diamonds with gold. And diamonds with gold is pretty much mixing warm and cool.
Yeah, right.
But it's that thing. And there are some people, so especially as we get older, we tend to go from our extreme warms and cools closer to the middle between warm and cool. So it's not so obvious often as we get older how warm or cool we are. We get a little bit, muddier.
That's fascinating.
And so this is when I'll often find that when people get older, that they'll start to mix metals. I'll often go for a watch that's got, it's a silver band with some gold bits, or the other way around. And that kind of mixing of metals comes into it. So there's nothing wrong. I'm wearing mixed metals today. I've got silver and gold on. But I've also got like a star on my shoulder, which has got silver and gold in it. So I go,
You're very sparkly today too.
Already mixed together.
So, obviously, when you're working with beads, there's a lot of colour involved, and you've touched a little bit on how colour works. But can you expand on that? Just about how colour for warm versus cool.
So, when I think about colour is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. I'm going to get a little bit physics on you right now. The so we know it's light is in waves, and that, so every colour has its own light wave, and we've got faster ones, which are our blues and violets. We've got our slower ones, which is like our red. So we think about that rainbow, but within that, so we've got all these light waves, and so when we're seeing colour, what we're seeing is reflected light. So whether a colour is flattering or unflattering is based on our skin pigments. Now, we've got to remember that when we're thinking about colour being reflected light, I'm just going to do a little demo for you.
Yeah.
Can I pop this under my chin? Do you see my chin now glows yellow?
Absolutely. It's the whole buttercup thing.
Buttercup principle. So everything we're wearing is actually reflecting onto our face. Now, most people don't realise, and now I've got this right under my chin, so it's really obvious, but everything we're wearing is reflecting onto our face. So whether it's flattering or unflattering is based on your skin pigments. And of course, these pigments change over time. Now, we notice the pigments in hair changing, like, it's gone grey. But skin changes as well, which is why often when people dye their hair back to their natural colour, and you look at it and you go, oh, that looks harsh. Yeah. It's because they don't have the skin they had when they had that colour originally. Their skin has changed. Like, I look back, I used to have black hair when I was young. And I was snow white. I had very white skin. I don't have that really white skin anymore. My skin is darker than it was. It's softer than it was. So I could wear those really bright kind of colours. They don't suit me as well anymore. So when we're thinking about, so every time, we have a hair colour change, things like that, that can change our colouring as well. But yeah, so when we're thinking about, and I think about it like music. If you think about, like, why would you want to listen to music that's out of tune? And I have the same thing with colour. Why would I want to be wearing clothes that are not in tune with my colouring? So, really all we are as humans is a bunch of atoms, a bunch of energy that's just stuck together in some way or other. And, we're walking around, and there are certain colours that are like in the same vibration as us versus the colours that are vibrating at a different frequency, but, they work for somebody else. So really it's just creating harmony and balance with your own colouring. So there's our three properties. So I mentioned the undertone, we talked about warm and cool. There's also what we call value, which just is the technical word for light to dark. And then there is intensity. So that is the technical word for how bright the colour is versus how muted or greyed down the colour is. So if you've ever tried to mix grey clothes together and you think these just don't go, it's actually, most greys are not just straight black and white. What they are is a whole mix of colours together until you get a muddy kind of grey colour. And so some will be a green and some will be yellow base, some will be a pink base. And of course, they don't go together very easily. It's a bit like if you've ever painted and you wash your brush out and then you do another colour and you wash your brush out and you do another colour and you wash your brush out and the water goes grey. That's really kind of how we get grey. So as we age, we grey down, like we see it in the hair, but the skin kind of softens down as well. And also we tend to lighten up. So if you're someone like you who's very light, you're going to look better in overall more light colours than dark colours. Dark colours are going to look really heavy on you. But if somebody who's very dark looks better in overall light colours, dark colours, because light colours look unground, like they look a bit insignificant on them.
And the whole dark to light thing, it was a real shift for me. Not that I was ever a black person. Well, when I was young, I used to wear black, and I had this little old lady that I knew, and every time I wore black, she'd take my hand and she'd say, "Are you okay, dear? You look very pale today." So I stopped wearing black. And but the whole light to dark thing, it's actually quite a major shift for most people, because certainly for me, I used to wear lots of bright colours, but I also used to wear quite a lot of dark colours. But my jewellery used to be really light. So I've actually had to do a complete flip and go with darker jewellery and lighter clothes, which is really fascinating. So when you're designing jewellery, so basically what you're saying in a nutshell is keep the tones similar warm with warm, intensity level fairly similar, and value fairly similar.
It's in many ways, if you look at interior decorating, like if you walk into a room and it's a pastel room, everything's pastel. They don't put a bit of pastel with a bit of, like it's not all over the shop, is it? It's all together. It's a bright room and everything's bright. And it's the same sort of thing when you're putting jewellery together. It's like, I don't want some dull colours with some bright colours and warm colours. Like it just becomes a mishmash.
Yes,
So it's really looking at like what is in line with you, what's balanced with you, and so it's going to enhance you rather than kind of detract from you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else you'd like to say about jewellery?
I mean, one of the other things to think about with jewellery also is, do you want shiny or do you want more matte?
Right.
That's also something that, like we've got shiny beads, we've got matte beads, we've got all sorts of different textures, all sorts of different things. So that can relate to, like how shiny is your skin? Are you somebody who naturally goes to sheen or shine? Do you have shiny hair? Or are you more matte? So that can relate. So if you're more shiny, wear more shiny jewellery. If you're more matte, you might find that, like a more matte bead or, is going to work better for you. And even thinking like textures. So if you've got textured hair, like your hair is more textured than mine.
Yes.
And so this is where having like those edgy cuts works, because it creates more texture in the bead than just say a smooth circle.
So a faceted bead is better on me, and a smooth round bead is better on you. Yeah.
So depending how textured your hair is, all those sorts of things also can play into it. So sometimes it's and there's also I think one of the other things when we're thinking about, like, especially necklaces, how long do I make it? Because, we've all had that experience where you put a necklace on and you go, oh, it's not quite right. And it's often because it's not sitting at what we call your balance point. And so this is basically, if you just, a very simple sort of thing is going, we have the length of the face and then the same distance down is your balance point. So ideally what we want is that the kind of majority of the piece is at that same distance down as the length of your face.
Right.
That sort of thing. So it's just like going down. So that just gives you, so if you want to do a long necklace, just keep doubling, going, how long do I make it? We'll just keep doubling the face length.
Okay.
And that's a really easy way of figuring it out, because if you play with this, you'd be amazed at like going too short. Like, so if I pull this up to here, you go, it's too short for me now, isn't it?
Yeah. And it actually focuses on your neck now, which you said you didn't want to see.
But I look a little bit choked. Now, I've got quite a long neck, so it's not so bad. But if you had a short neck, that would be,
so
like, if I put it back down, you can see it looks much more balanced. So that's another little thing to think about, is where are your balance points, and therefore where are we putting the focal point?
The thing about the doubling your face length for a long necklace is actually really important, because this trend at the moment is to wear really long necklaces with tassels and things, and where that ends, to do, I've seen people with them really long and they are touching their tummy, and that just accentuates that area, which most people don't want. So just, and I've often thought, especially if someone's short, just pull it up a little bit and it would look great.
So like if you're petite or if you've got short legs, wear shorter necklaces.
Okay.
Like there's kind of like short legs, shorter, because what it does is drawing the eye further up the body. Versus if you're very tall, you can wear longer necklaces. But remember, wherever the necklace ends draws attention. So particularly if it's got a tassel or some sort of pendant, that is a focal point. So I would never put one on the middle of my stomach. So I don't want to wear something long and then have the pendant down by my stomach, because all it's going to do is go, hey, look at my tummy.
Yeah. Yay.
And you know what's amazing? They sell these long necklaces more in plus size stores than anywhere else. Yet these are the women who do not want to be drawing attention to their stomachs most of the time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And part of the reason they do that is because they might have a bigger neck, so it's a bit harder to fit a shorter necklace. So it's much easier to sell a long one because anybody can put it over their head. But it's not necessarily flattering. So it's worthwhile, like going, if it has a definite focal point, like if it's just some chunky beads, it's different.
Yeah.
And then I always say that if you've got something that's chunky, if you want to draw attention up, make sure that you have chunky up high, because that's going to draw attention up rather than just having the focal point if it's like the chunky starts down low.
So if you were to create a necklace with, say, 20 millimetre beads, which are big chunky ones, and it was all the way around, that would be fine if it was long, but you don't just put them in the middle.
Yeah, just don't put them just at the bottom, because that's just going to create, that's the focal point.
Yeah, so bringing them up here as well pulls the eye out. Okay.
Pulls the eye out, yeah.
It's fascinating. There's so much to it too, you know, and it is for you trial and error, really. If you, you know, I mean, I've done that, you know, bought necklaces and thought, oh my gosh, this looks terrible on me. And before, obviously, I didn't have any clue why. I remember just before I did my 7 Steps program, I bought this amazing necklace that was dark purple, sparkly, and lots of small beads and lots of strands all twisted together. And I thought, oh wow, this is amazing. And I never wore it. I only wore it like once, and I could not figure out why. And of course 7 Steps showed me that it was just not right for me. It was too dark, it was just not right. So it's just fascinating.
Look, it's one of those things I often think, if you've got something that's not right, like I pull necklaces apart all the time, where sometimes I'll even buy a necklace to pull apart and make into something else. Like I can put something else in that. So I mean, if you've got those big chunky beads, you know what I'd do if you were making something long, but you don't want to draw attention to something, I'd put chunky beads up here, interspersed with a few smaller beads, and then have more smaller beads in the middle.
Yeah.
So what you're actually doing is putting the weight of the necklace up higher, like the focal point of the necklace goes up higher.
Yeah.
So even though it's long, it's not just all down, because so many things, it's all just down at the bottom, which is not great.
Yep. Okay, well, it's been lovely to chat with you today, and I will leave your details in the comment section in the description box below so that everyone can find you, because you're amazing. You've got so much knowledge and it just blows my mind. Even as I said, after 3 years I'm still learning. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fabulous having you on. Hopefully we can talk again some other time.
Sure. Thanks, Carol. It's my pleasure. And yes, I've got a blog post on pretty much everything we've talked about today.
Yes.
So
yes, your website is amazing. It's like a Bible of how to dress yourself, really. And it is just incredible. And if I'm ever looking for, you know, what length skirt to wear or what style dress, you know, that's where I go.
Fantastic. Thanks, Carol.
Okay, thank you. I bet you didn't realise there was so much to think about when choosing jewellery. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Imogen today. I certainly have. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and like the video, and also ring the bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload something new. Remember to check out Imogen's blog, which is Inside Out Style Blog, and I've left a link in the description box below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.